Chapter 3 just dropped for Dune Awakening, and this is by far the biggest update the game has seen so far. There's new endgame system, new weapons, new dungeons, but most importantly for us, performance and visual improvements that actually matter on the Steam Deck. So let's break it all down. Now before I jump straight into Steam Deck performance, here's a very quick rundown of what Chapter 3 adds overall. There's a brand new endgame progression with Platinum Tier 6 reworked, a full Landrat overhaul with repeatable missions and specialization XP, 5 new Imperial testing stations with scalable difficulty, new augmentation system for late game gear, new weapons including dual blades, the Pyrocket and a full rapier rework, and yeah, taxation is now completely gone. There's a lot of stuff here and a lot of it is quality of life and it's an attempt to bring players back. I'm not sure if it's not too late about that, but for now, let's focus on what Steam Deck players should actually care about. Now, Chapter 3 brings several under-the-hood changes that directly improve how the game runs on lower-end hardware, including the Steam Deck. So let's go through those one by one and I'll show you exactly how the game behaves right now. First, quick context on my setup because this matters a lot. In display options, I've set the field of view to 80, I've disabled motion blur and V-Sync, and in the graphics tab, everything is set to the absolute lowest, and I'm using XeSS. In my first ever video, I was testing FSR, TSR, TAA, and XeSS consistently gave the best performance in the game. Our resolution scale is set to 50%, which is the balance mode for XeSS. It does make the game look blurry and pixelated, but is the only way to get playable performance. I've also turned on the low-end laptop experimental mode, and most importantly, I'm running a 30 FPS cap both in-game and on the Steam Deck. The game can go above 30 in certain areas and I'll show you footage with that, but when it does, it introduces heavy stutter and it's not very stable, so locking it is still the best option. The patch notes say there's improved frame rate stability near NPCs, which was previously a big stutter point, and I've gone ahead and gone to this NPC point here and it still feels pretty rough. In NPC hubs like this, and believe me there are denser ones, FPS is dropping into the mid-teens, bouncing between 15 and 24, and it doesn't stay locked at 30 at all. Maybe it's slightly better than before. I don't have a perfect side-by-side, but from a Steam Deck perspective, this isn't what I would call stable. Another patch note mentions reduced client-side load from very far away fabricators, wind turbines and refineries when they're attached to bases. So large bases are still one of the hardest things for Deck to handle, and we're looking at my base right now and I'm gonna turn around and look at an even bigger base. It tries to hold 30, but once these assets start streaming in, it dips to 20 FPS, sometimes even lower. There's a huge base right over here. I'm gonna try and fly over it, and it's an absolute stutterfest. It's really not any better from what I can see. It's pretty much the same experience as before. And if I start to pan the camera around, that's when it really collapses. So there might be some improvement here, but I can't really tell if there is. Big bases are still a major performance problem, and unfortunately I don't think there's any way around that. Now another patch note says improved map UI performance on low-end hardware. Now this one is actually legit and it's a big one. The patch notes specifically call out improvements for low-end hardware and Steam Deck, and before this update, opening the map could tank FPS down to around 8. Now the map holds the FPS cap properly, opening it and closing it smooth, there's no massive hitch. So yeah, map performance is genuinely fixed and that's a big quality of life win. In fact, if I remove the FPS cap, the map will jump even to 60 FPS, so that is really massive. I'm glad they were able to fix that. The patch notes also say there should be fewer streaming related drops when player bases load in or out. I do think this is maybe somewhat improved, but when a huge base loads you can still see big dips, sometimes even down to 10 FPS, so this one is better but definitely not solved. There's also a bunch of visual and UI changes that improve clarity on a 7-inch display. So weapon info cards now use icon-based stat rows instead of vague bars. Shield damage, stamina cost, damage types are clearer at a glance. Radiation UI has been massively improved. The overland map now better matches in-world topology with cleaner icons and categories. Improved lighting consistency between high and ultra settings. Of course, we're not going to be able to notice that. And a small but huge quality of life change, the personal glow globe now follows the camera instead of the character, and this makes interior exploration way easier without constantly fighting shadows. Now with all of this locked to 30 FPS, battery life comes in at around 2 hours and 45 minutes, If I'm just standing around in my base, it can stretch past 3 hours, but during normal play, 2 hours and 45 minutes is a realistic expectation. I did also test lossless scaling as well, and you can push towards 60 FPS, but as it is with lossless scaling, it will introduce heavy artifacting and UI glitches. And something else I mentioned is that when you open the menu or any fabricator or refinery, you're gonna see these visual glitches and your mouse or your left analog is going to start lagging behind. This is caused by lossless scaling, even if you don't have the actual multiplier turned on. So right now I don't recommend it for Dune Awakening. So overall, Chapter 3 brings a few real stability improvements, especially the map, but in terms of raw performance, it's not that big a leap for the Steam Deck, and honestly, I don't think it can be improved much more than that. So if you're somebody who previously played Dune Awakening, you might find out that it now runs just a little bit better on the Steam Deck, and that might be enough to bring you back in and to play it on the Steam Deck. I still wouldn't play this on the Steam Deck as my main way to experience the game, but for light farming, chores, light combat in safer areas, it's absolutely usable. So that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys found it helpful or enjoyable, please consider leaving a like, subscribe for more Steam and Steam Deck content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.